I'm holding the Turning the Page webinar, and I'm going to be focusing a lot on this in my private coaching groups and with my clients. And there will be a program, a 6-week program on starting over, where we will actually focus on what are the issues with starting over, and I'm going to do a small container of women who, probably women, but not exclusively, that are starting over. So we can work as a group and we can face these issues together. We can do some coaching. We're going to be doing some intuitive work. We're also going to be doing recodes where we're looking specifically at starting over. And I'll be talking more about that container in the webinar. Those of you that are interested, please send me a DM if you haven't been able to register. Or you can go on my website, which is www.verenawhite.com.au. But I'll put that in the comments below too. So this is just another extension to working with me, but I think it is such an important thing. It's really that new beginning often blocks us from really embracing the future that we're meant to have, the future that we're trying to create, that starting over, that first step or that second, third step as we're getting closer. Because sometimes it's easy to start that first step and we're there, and then fear kicks in as we sort of get closer to that end result. So, Jackie, how beautiful. Jackie is here. Thank you for joining. Thank you for joining, Jackie. Yeah, so that is going to be the webinar, but today we are talking about self-sabotage, which coincides with this. So what is it? Why do we get that feeling and frustration of self-sabotage often? Like when we are moving towards new things, when we're trying to create, we sometimes feel like we're self-sabotaging, whether it be procrastination, whether it be that we sit in front of Netflix for a night instead of doing the work, instead of getting up early to do that exercise, we press the snooze button. What is it about our self-sabotage? It could be many, many different things, but I want to talk a little bit about that, and that the self-sabotage is not something that is set to make our life more difficult. The reason that we have this there, the reason our unconscious mind has put these things in place is to keep us safe. Because there was a time somewhere in your life cycle where this learning that the self-sabotage came in to keep you safe, keep you from going into the unknown, keep you from expressing yourself, keep you from putting yourself out there. There was a time where that kept you safe. And so your unconscious developed what we call unconscious agendas. And these are usually developed between 0 and 7 in those first learning years, when we're in theta brainwave, when we are absorbing and creating belief systems, and how we're choosing to see the world, how we're seeing the world through the eyes of our child self. Now, these belief systems then come back in adult life really as sabotage programs or limiting beliefs, because they don't serve us as adults. There was a time as children, being fearful of that, being uncertain of that, there was a time that your unconscious mind coded this up as something that was going to keep you safe. So this is the process we're going to go through today. And I know we've spoken about unconscious agendas before, and I know Julie's definitely done calls on it. And if you want to go back and have a look, because I don't think you can ever receive too much information about this, because on different aspects of your life, you may have different unconscious agendas. There are 9 that we're going to go through today. There's 9 unconscious that are more general. Obviously, there could be some specific ones, but these 9 are the ones that actually seem to show up. And from those 9, all the other ones can express out of. So let's go through these 9 unconscious agendas, these self-sabotage programs. But what I want you, the premise I want you to understand before we start looking at them, there was a time that this kept you safe. There's an aspect of you that believes it is keeping you safe and doing the right thing. It's not there for you to hate on, to believe that this is you trying to sabotage your own life. These sabotage programs did play a role at some stage, and maybe there are even ancestral beliefs that came in that kept your ancestors safe that do not have a role in this current environment. But as conscious creators, this is where we can identify these unconscious agendas and start making choices in spite of them. We can acknowledge them, understand where it was, and reframe them so they can be worked as positive programs that we can take forward into our life. So we can start over, so we can move into that next step. So I'm going to go through the 9. So if you've got a pencil and paper or, your notebook, write them down, because they might be worthwhile to have a look, or, the ones that feel like they're aligned to you, that'll be good. Then you can write them down to actually say, oh, that one feels like. So I want you to think of something that you've wanted to create that you haven't been able to create yet. So we're going to focus on one of those beliefs, one of those choices that you have, and we're going to have a look at what unconscious agenda is attached or linked to that choice. So the choice could be a specific one. We could go back to the general ones. I choose a life that I love. I choose to be the dominant creative force of my life. I choose health and vitality. I choose to live a life aligned to my true nature and purpose. I think that's 4. And then you have your other true choices that you've completed. So they'll be what your secondary choices of something that you are trying to create. So think of something that you're trying to create that's sort of slipped you by, and we're going to have a look at them. So the first unconscious agenda that we're going to look at is there is a perfect way of being. Okay, so this often is related to the identity of the perfectionist, and this could be related to I have a client who has OCD, and this is a strong one for her, the need to be perfect, and this is definitely a self-sabotaging program, because perfection is unattainable. And especially when we're trying something new, perfection stops you from getting started in the first place. It will be, and with someone who, for example, has OCD, perfectionism will be a constant way that they can then shift onto other beliefs that they're not good enough or they're not capable, because they've put this bar so high of perfectionism that everything needs to be perfect before I go any further. And this will stop you from moving forward. And of course, if you can think of a time as a child, like, that you needed to have your room clean before you got rewarded, or when we're getting rewards for our writing license, when we're writing and we're learning how to write, we're getting rewards for things to be perfect. And so a child will go, well, they'll relate that to being loved. Oh, I need to be perfect to be loved. I need to get this right to be loved. And you see this, especially with definitely A-type personalities, and this perfectionism. I had another client who was a very successful businesswoman, definitely was a sabotage agenda, but the perfectionism also was a drive for her. So she had to shift the premise of the perfectionism, rather than to beat herself up and that everything had to be perfect, that she could use that to move forward. She could use that as a motivation to keep getting things right, rather than things needed to be perfect before I start. There's like, my perfectionism will keep me driving to improve things, always trying to improve things. So that you'll come into a more flexible program rather than everything needs to be perfect and I'm going to judge my value, who I am, and everything on me being perfect. So that's the first one, that there is a perfect way of doing something. So that's something we've coded up as we were younger. So that's the first egoic agenda, the unconscious agenda. The second one is I'm going to be good, then I'm worthy. And we can sort of see how they overlap. And you can see how children then code this kind of unconscious agenda up. When I'm good, I am worthy of love. When I'm good, so they're always striving for that validation. They're always striving for that external, you're doing a good job, this is good. And like their whole value of how they see themselves is based. So then they go into this of worthiness. So if I'm not good at this, if this relationship fails, it's because I'm not worthy. And so this egoic agenda has shown itself up that, that if when this egoic agenda exists, it's attached to an identity. So this is where the structure comes in that, to get to the other side, this is when we're going to create a life that we love and where we are now. When you get to that desired end result, that means you no longer feel unworthy. So then that is in a contradiction to your unconscious agenda that I need to be good enough. I need to be good. I need to be worthy. So when you're always trying to be worthy to get love, when you're worthy, your identity is like, well, who am I then? So then it's like this constant battle of that you are never really allowed to get to that end result because your identity is attached to this unconscious agenda. So that's I'm going to be good and then I'm worthy. So number 4, I need to be accepted and loved. So this taps into the belief about belonging. And it is definitely a belief that children need. Children need to feel they need to feel loved, safe, and they need to feel like they belong. So I need to be loved and accepted is like you're trying to always strive for acceptance of others, always trying to feel like you belong. And if there was a time where you didn't feel like you belonged and the whole goal was to find love and acceptance, it means that your whole structure is around trying to solve this issue about not being loved and accepted and belonging. Same thing. So your end result, if your end result is one of creation, that I'm going to create something different to my family. For example, if the saying of the family of thieves, the family member who doesn't steal is the one that feels like they've done something wrong. So this feeling loved and accepted is constantly striving, and you see the pattern, it's always outside of ourselves. It's always trying to resolve our connections with others, always trying to resolve what we do, like resolve that I need to be accepted. And so always striving for that. So maybe your goals will be what other people expect of you. Maybe it's trying to belong, always trying to resolve that I belong. So you keep coming up with situations where you don't belong. So it feeds that identity that I'm striving for acceptance and love. Does that make sense? Does that resonate? And the other one, number 5, is I need to understand how the world works. I need to figure everything out and why they work. So this goes into the personality of the person who's always trying to understand everything. They're trying to understand how the world works. So the unconscious agenda, it's like, when you find out how the world works, it's like, and because we live in a co-creative world, because we live in a world with many different opinions, to find out an absolute, it's striving for for something that can be very frustrating. So a personality type of this, if anyone is aware of, like, for example, Jordan Peterson, he's a psychologist, and I have followed his work, and I would say, so that academic, that the researcher, the person who's always searching for answers to try and understand how it works, it can be quite, a reclusive agenda that actually sets you up to never feel enough. That I need to find how this works, because if I don't, then where do I fit in? So it's like this egoic agenda of, I need to find out how the world works. And so when you're trying to test these hypotheses of how the world works and they don't fit in, it can be very frustrating. And it's like, you're never going to feel that you can accept how it is, because you're always trying to find why it works. And you're going to get into this loop of always trying to find out how it works and never, ever being able to find peace with it. So it's that sort of chasing something, chasing a goal, means that why things happen. That person who is like, their relationship broke up and they couldn't really resolve it because they need to understand everything about it, rather than just accept that, you know what, sometimes relationships don't work and you need to understand it. So it actually withdraws you from your community, because you're trying to understand the ins and outs to keep you safe. Because if I understand it, I will feel safe. And because in this great big world of many opinions, many situations, you're never really going to find out how something really works. Maybe simple things, but especially when you're dealing with relationships and people, it will be a difficult one. So that was number 5. Number 6, this is a big one I find, is number 6 is looking for someone to give you permission. Looking for someone to, why won't they allow me to have what I want? And this, what you will find when someone has the belief of like, everyone's getting what they want except me. It's like you need permission to have what you want. And this is something, especially as a child, you needed permission to get that lolly, or you needed permission to go to the toilet at school, or you needed permission. So it got deep ingrained that, someone else has power over me. Someone gets to decide on my success and how I fit into the world. So this is a big one. So the egoic agenda, that I need permission, the unconscious feeling that I need permission. So it's like when you're feeling like everyone else is working out except for me. It's all working out for everyone else and not for me. Or everyone else can have those good relationships. Other people can have money and prosperity. Michelle. Other people can have money and prosperity, but I can't. It's like I need permission to have it. So that is something that shows up a lot, especially with the statement, why won't they allow me to have what I want? If that feels familiar to you, or maybe take note, write that down. What is it that you feel like you need permission for? Do you need permission to pursue this career that you want? Do you need permission to pursue a career in dancing or music instead of being an accountant or a lawyer? Do you need permission to pursue something that you want? Do you need permission to be wealthy? Do you need permission to be outside the box? So when you feel like everyone is getting there but you, and this is something that I had for sure, that it was like, oh, well, everyone has this except me, or everyone, it's like that I needed permission to have it. And whoever you think you needed permission from, it doesn't really matter, because when we go into the egoic agenda, it'll be that you've given your power to someone else. You've given your power to an external source to make decisions for you. So you can see this with people that have been in narcissistic relationships, or have been with an overbearing partner where they've given their power away. So it's like they felt like they needed permission to do something. Okay, the number 7 one is I'm only allowed to have good feelings. I'm not allowed to feel sad. And so this is definitely early conditioning, when we don't allow our children to emotionally regulate. Like when they're sad, we give them something to stop them being sad. Here's a lolly, here's a treat, here's your iPad, something because I can't deal with that right now. And so when people get older, they haven't been able to process these big emotions, process grief. I'm not allowed to be sad, so they get themselves busy, or I'm not allowed to feel like this happened to me because I'm a man and I can't be sad and I can't feel this, or I'm a woman and I can't be angry. So it's like this, I'm only allowed to have good feelings, and this could then affect you in a way where it affects how you emotionally regulate. It affects you that you're not allowed to dig deep into your shadow to actually grow and expand. And through this work, it's not all positive thinking, and if I think positive, everything will work out for me. It's actually acknowledging the shadow. It's actually acknowledging that something didn't work out. I felt sad about it, but I can pivot. I can choose it. What did I need to learn from that? It's like transmuting. This is about emotional mastery. And this is, we did a session on this last year on emotional mastery, and how important it was to transmute emotions, that all emotions in the consciousness scale and the emotional scale have a place. And if we don't acknowledge emotions being energy in motion, we're suppressing things, and that will come back to bite us. Hence the egoic agenda, hence the unconscious agenda that, I'm not allowed to feel sad. So I can never really dig deep into this true motivation. I want to follow my heart, to live from my heart space. Okay, so number 8, to dominate. If they are in control, they will get what they want. This restricts intervention, and from inspired action and divine intervention can lead you to adrenal fatigue. So these are the people that are control freaks. I need to control everything. And they're never in the frequency or the vibration of allowing. So in the higher mind, we have allowing. In the lower mind, we have control. So these are the people that feel like they need to control every situation, how things come to them. I'm going to have a relationship, and I'm going to have it with that person, and I'm going to be married by this time. I'm going to have these children. I'm going to do this, this, and this. And they're very controlling. And how this is a negative with people is that they don't allow things to come to fruition. Oh, sorry, Michelle. Yeah, so I'm talking about unconscious agendas. Unconscious agendas, and I'm talking about the 9 unconscious agendas, the 9 sabotage orientation patterns. So we're talking about self-sabotage. So I'm just going through the 9, and I'll repeat them. I'm at number 8 at the moment. So the first one was, there's a perfect way of being. I'm going to be good, then I am worthy. Number 2. Number 3 is trying to prove that you are good enough means that you have something to prove. Oh, actually, I missed that one. That was about not being good enough. So number 3 was trying to prove that you are good enough means that you have something to prove. So it's like, it's those people that are very competitive, like are always trying to prove that I'm good enough, don't put me down. And they're always the ones that are, maybe will push you out of the, like, this is more sort of the negative framework. They'll push you out of the way to get where they want, to prove I'm good enough. I can do this, because when I prove that I'm good enough, I will be loved. And so it's probably from that motivation, that early conditioning of, competition, and I need to prove myself because then I will be loved. And especially boys whose fathers are pushing them to be the best in their sport or the best in this, so they have to find this competition. I see it is definitely on both genders, but I do see it as a masculine trait, this needing to compete and be good enough. It's like this testosterone driven competition, survival, like that sort of tribal instinct to compete and be the strongest one in the pack kind of thing. Okay, that was number 3, which I missed out on. So number 8 was dominate. Number 8's dominate. So that's the one about controlling. Or girls raised by their dads. Yeah, absolutely, because it's a masculine trait which is pushed on, as in this is how you receive love. So yeah, that is with that masculine trait, rather the competition to show you're the best, to stand out, because if they, and it does really come from a tribal sort of an ancestral belief, because it's about survival. Like when I said there was a time where this kept you safe in a tribe, the strongest one, the fittest one, boy, man, who was going out to get food, to do this, they would survive. So it really stems that needing to prove yourself stems quite far back. And you may, if it isn't something in early conditioning that you found, maybe you look at ancestral beliefs or something like that go way back. Dominate is all about control. They need to restrict how things come to them because they need to know. So they're actually cutting themselves off from superconscious. They're cutting themselves off from surrender and allowing. And allow is when this beautiful divine plan, like Florence Scovel-Shinn talks about the divine plan, lots of other spiritual teachers talk about it. So our divine plan, the law of allowing, which Neville Goddard. So I'm just mentioning some spiritual teachers. If you want to go out there and have a listen to some extra learnings, there is a book called The Law of Allowing from Neville Goddard. It's fantastic. It really talks about getting into the feeling of the end result. Florence Scovel-Shinn talks about it. Of course, Abraham Hicks talks about the law of allowing. When you don't allow and you need to control and dominate and restrict the how things turn up for you, you're cutting yourself off from divine guidance. You're cutting yourself off from your intuition. So this is where dominate is a sabotage. There was a time, obviously, when I control how things come to me, when I can control this situation, I feel safe. But it does cut you off from creating and being in a conscious creator structure. And sometimes can be, if you're, for example, if you're like, I want a relationship and I want a relationship with this person, and it's going to be like this, this, and this. And you can probably think of lots of examples. Like if you're of people that have been very restrictive and controlling about the kind of relationships they've invited into their life, and ticking boxes rather than allowing maybe the true soulmate to show up. So that's just one example. So that was 8, dominate. And number 9 is peace. So this is the pacifist. This is the sabotage program of peace, no conflict. So they can never really go for what they want because they will cower away from conflict. And they need to have peace. So they a family member of mine, my husband's brother, I would say he fits into that. Like, I can say it because it's not going, this is a private group, but he will never have conflict. He will never push the envelope. He will always need to be the good son, do things. And it's funny how things show up. And he suffers quite badly from psoriasis and skin issues because he's always suppressing his feelings. It's very obvious that I as the observer, I can see this from an outsider's point of view. He's suppressing, so it's going to come out some way. It'll come out one day, and the skin issues. There's the big one, how inflammation and maybe suppressed anger will come out, that they never speak up. They'll never go for what they want. So there is a feeling of lack of fulfillment with this sabotage program, with this orientation, when you feel like that conflict, that you will always cower away from conflict and do what is always known and never push the envelope, or never even ask for what you want, or never even choose it. And there is that feeling of lack of fulfillment. And sort of as those people get older, they sort of really disconnect. And things start to show up in whether they have weight gain, whether they let themselves go, whether they have skin disorders. These people will find a way to process these emotions of not being able to go for what they want, not being able to speak up, not being able to stand up for themselves. And so this is where this no conflict will not serve them. So they're the 9 main sabotage programs there, and as we went through them before. Now, the process we're going to go through today, if you had a chance to write them down, I'll just read them through again quickly. And like I said, what is something that you've wanted to create that feel like it's just out of reach? Maybe you're nearly there, but you haven't got there. Something that you feel like you do self-sabotage yourself with. Think of that. And as I'm going through the list, I want you to feel into, and even body test yourself a little bit to see, as I say each one, which one moves forward. So think about the thing you're trying to create. Write it down. Have that in your field. That's what we're going to work on today. And I'm going to go through these and just sort of feel in, what do you move forward? If you know muscle testing, you can do muscle testing. If you're unsure, you can type it in and I'll muscle test for you. But you will know, you'll intuitively know which one is related to you and that particular choice. Does that make sense? Just put a 1 in the chat box if that makes sense. Okay, so choose your choice. And I'll go through the 9. You may already know which sabotage agenda that is working for you. Okay, so the first one is the need to be perfect. Second one is I'm going to be good, then I am worthy. Number 3, trying to prove that you are good enough means that you have something to prove. Means you're trying to prove I am good enough. Hence the sabotage orientation is that your unconscious will never allow you to feel good enough, because then you've resolved that identity. Number 4, I need to be accepted and loved. And this is related to the need to belong. Or maybe the things that are showing up, the things that show up for you is that you don't belong, or that you're not belonging. Number 5, I need to understand how the world works. I need to figure everything out, why things happen. So it's that researcher in you, the one that's trying to solve the problem that never gets to the end of it. It's always, Google searching, or it's like trying to resolve this problem, trying to understand why people do what they do, and it can get very frustrating. It's like, because when I understand it, I can move forward. A little bit attached to the perfectionist as well. But this need to understand how the world works. So this could be one of relationships, especially if you haven't got over a relationship and you're trying to understand why this person did this to you. Sometimes we just have to surrender to that, because you might not like the answer, and often that is the case. The answer that you're going to find is not something that you want to, or not something you want to deal with. So that's number 5, is the need to understand the world and how it works. Number 6, looking for someone to give you permission. So this comes from the belief why won't they allow me to have what I want? If that triggers you, if that feels real, like, why can't I have what I want? Just feel into it. That could be one for you. Number 7, only allowed to have good feelings, not allowed to feel sad, scared to feel sad. When I'm sad, I'm not loved. When I'm upset, I'm ignored. So it's like I need to be upbeat, happy, positive all the time. And number 8, dominate. It's about I need to control everything. I'm a control freak. I need to control it. I need to control how things come to me. I need to control who's in my life, what they do. I need to control how people do this. These are the people that can't delegate. They can't. It's like everything has to have their signature or their. It's like I need to control because that's how I feel safe. And number 9 is peace, no conflict, never going for what you want because you don't want to rock the boat. Okay? So does everyone have one that they feel aligned to, that they want to work on, the unconscious agenda? Just put one in the chat box. Or if you want any more information on it, you've all got one. Great. Okay, because if you don't, happy to muscle test for you. What is one? Okay, so what I'm going to work on today for myself is to be the dominant creative force. And the sabotage agenda for me is the permission one, needing to have permission. First and last one. So there's a perfect way of being and no conflict. Is that the one for you, Jackie? Yeah. Yeah, need to be perfect and no conflict. So in that sabotage, wow, in that sabotage orientation, it'd be really hard for you to choose, really hard to go for what you want. It's really hard for you to allow yourself, like, that there's a perfect way of being, so I have to be this, but then never being able to go what you want because you don't want conflict. Yeah. That I can feel the constriction in that one. I can feel it. So knowing what your unconscious agenda is helps you disengage from this sabotage. So we've already started the process. Knowing this sabotage agenda helps you disengage from this from that. You have awareness. So you've already started to disengage. So what we're going to do is I want you now to go into that end result. What is it, that thing that you want to create? Because we want to feel into that feeling of the end result, the wish fulfilled. We want to go into that. What is it that you're trying to create that you haven't been able to create yet? So just go in, relax your shoulders, go in to that end result, that desired end result. And just feel into it. Feel into that end result. Feel the joy. What does it feel like to be there? What does it feel like? What does success feel like? Write down some of the emotions. Feel into that. And I want you now to put this end result, this desired end result, in a bubble. Place it in the right-hand side of your mind's eye. This is your end result. This is your desired end result. This is the stake in the ground. This is the point, the unmovable point that we're moving towards. And as you just can physically, in your mind's eye, imagine that you've put the stake in the ground. This is where I'm going to, this end result, where I feel happy, where I feel pride, where I feel successful, joy, abundant, whatever the other emotions that you're feeling. Joy, completeness. And I want you now, as if you're drawing a line from that point to where you are now. And I want you to feel, what is the difference between that and now? You've got some awareness with the unconscious agenda, but we just want to feel into it. What does it feel like now? Restrictive. Feeling like you have no choice. Feeling like things are passing you by. Feeling stuck. All right, so we've created 2 points in time. The end result and where we are now, which is the movable point. So I want you now just to visually in your mind's eye imagine those 2 points in time. And to see you now in the present, I want you to grow yourself younger. I want you to grow yourself younger right before you took on this belief that you couldn't go for what you wanted, that you needed to be perfect. I want you to grow yourself younger to a time where you no longer felt that tightness in the chest, that restriction. Grow yourself younger. And just so you know, growing yourself younger will be younger than 7. Where you decided to take on this belief was going to be a young age. You may remember times where you feel like there was a point, maybe older, maybe a teenage year, where you go, oh, well, this is where it's solidified, but that's not where you decided it. So I want you just to feel into the emotion and grow yourself younger. Grow yourself younger. To a time where you no longer felt this energy in the body, no longer felt this energy in your field. Grow yourself younger. And if it's still there, if you've gone all the way back to baby, maybe it's in utero. Is it in utero? Is it ancestral? Maybe it's ancestral. And so then grow yourself, just ask superconscious to take you back to the time before you took on this belief. Superconscious, go to the original event, the time right before you took on this belief, to a time where you no longer feel it in the body, where you feel whole, complete, unlimited. And this may be feeling when you're like just a thought, like a star. Growing yourself younger, going back through utero, back, before you even decided to come here. And I want you to see this belief. See this belief. Maybe it's the child that took it on. Maybe it's your child. Maybe it's an ancestral belief that was taken on. That conflict was bad. But I want you to go back and feel that feeling of not having it. And then I want you to see yourself as a child. The child that decided, the aspect of you in this lifetime that decided to take this on board. So the child that decided to take this on board. So maybe it's the inner child, the 3-year-old self, 2-year-old self. The child that first decided to see the world through perfection, that I needed to be perfect. The child that was witnessing that no conflict was a better way to be. And they were so good at this job that this aspect of you decided. And I want you to see this aspect of you. And I want you to say to this aspect of you that decided that they needed permission, that they needed to be perfect, that they couldn't have conflict, that they weren't allowed to go for what they want. And I want you to say to this version of you, do you know how old we are? And I want you to congratulate them for having this belief for so long. And you've done such a good job just keeping it in the field, but we've got a new belief. You've got a new job, because this doesn't serve us anymore. This does not help us move forward in our soul expansion. Because now you have the awareness of the version of you that never had this belief. Now you have the awareness of the version of you that decided to come here before you took on this belief. The version of you that is unlimited, the superconscious version. You've got that perspective. And I want you to tell this aspect of you that has the limited perspective, this is our new perspective. I can go for what I want. I have permission. And conflict. I have all the tools to keep me safe. And because you have an understanding, the superconscious version of you has an understanding that we're all co-creators. And if I go for what I want, it doesn't affect other people. It doesn't take away from other people. It's not going to. Superconscious, please let this aspect understand that when you go for what you want, no parts will die and no one will be hurt. Superconscious, please speak to this aspect and let them know that when I go for what I want, no parts will die and no one will be hurt. Superconscious, please treat this aspect of the version, the protected controller, who's taken on the belief of no conflict, and do a massive change history and everything else that's needed in the best and perfect way. When I go for what I want, doesn't mean people will be hurt. We live in a co-creative universe. And you come from the superconscious perspective, and let that aspect of you know that she's been promoted to be now the superconscious perspective of unlimited possibilities, unlimited. The version of you that chose to come here to experience this world. That I'm allowed to express my gifts in the biggest and best way. And the version of you that decided they needed to be perfect. See that little girl, that little aspect of you that felt like they needed to be perfect. And there's an ancestral, maybe there's a ancestral line, mother, 3 generations back, that they needed to be perfect. Superconscious, please treat this ancestral line in the best and perfect way. And please replace with the new belief that I don't need to be perfect. I need to be me. I'm not going to be hurt. I'm not going to be punished if I'm not perfect. I'm going to be rewarded for pursuing what I want, following my heart space. Please connect the heart space and the memory. Third eye. Please connect the heart space and the root chakra with that history, the ancestral programming. Please treat that in the best and perfect way. Allow the heart space to be stronger. Balance the root chakra that's no longer the bully in this situation. Please treat that in the best and perfect way. Thank you. Superconscious, please bring in the statement, I have permission to follow what my dreams, to do what I want. I have permission to be wealthy. I have permission to be successful. I have permission to shine. I have permission to stand out. And I want you now, that version of you that took on these unconscious beliefs, these limited programs, I want you now to see yourself from the superconscious perspective and bring yourself back into that younger version of you who chose it. But now you have the superconscious perspective, the one of unlimited possibilities, the one that knows you can choose what you want, that no one gets hurt when you pursue what you want. It was a false premise that I don't need to be perfect, that I just move forward. And that allows me for fulfillment and growth, that I have permission to do this. And the superconscious perspective that I'm the highest version of myself. I want you now to see that younger version of you take on that perspective. Superconscious, please ground the superconscious perspective into this younger version of yourself and grow yourself older. I want you to grow yourself older in your mind's eye with this superconscious perspective. I am unlimited. I am worthy. I am safe to ask for what I want, to move forward. And I want you now to see, as you grow older, how different life is. And you're growing older and you're no longer this child. And as you grow older, you're growing older with this new perspective. And you grow yourself older until the present day, until you're facing your present self. The version of you that took on the belief is now an adult, now the same age, now that version of you with this superconscious perspective. And I want you to see how you merge together as one conscious creator. Superconscious. Please tag and treat all remaining resistance to surrender these egoic agendas, to download the new instructions. I have permission to move forward. I can choose what I want. I am safe to choose what I want. I am worthy. Superconscious, tag and treat all remaining resistance. Please ground all memories we've touched on today: conscious memories, unconscious, superconscious, tandem memories, quantum memories, ancestral memories, past life, soul memories, ego states, future memories. Please ground them into the benevolent matrix of this universe. Thank you. It is done. And I want you now to move back into that end result and feeling the freedom, the connection to your true choice. And just when you're ready, feeling when you think about where you are now and where you're going, what does the resistance feel like? Does it feel less? Does it contraction when you're thinking about, does it feel less? Let me know. If anyone wants to share anything, they can come off mute and let me know how that felt. No, that's okay. Just enjoy, Jackie.
That was really neat. I felt I went right back to when I was 3 and my parents had separated, and I didn't even realize that was part of when I kind of decided that there could be no conflict and I just had to be perfect. So it was really, really telling. And the resistance just feels so much lower right now. That was really cool. Thanks, Verena.
Yeah, great.
It's really nice.
And I think, like, coming from going back further to the point before you decided to come here, when you were unlimited, and then bringing that wisdom back and giving it to your 3-year-old self so they can move forward, knowing that they aren't that situation. They aren't what happened. There was so much more than that.
That's where mine actually tied in too. Mine went back to be quiet, don't be heard, right? That there was conflict not allowed in the house. It was just, you knew it was there. There was always tension, but not allowed to be expressed. And then as soon as you pulled it into the unlimited, it was like I reconnected with a part of myself that they were actually trying to stifle because I was too bright and too energetic for whatever tension was happening in their world. So that was awesome. Just to come back to that unlimited space.
Yeah, like it felt like, to go to the unlimited, then come back to the restriction. And then there's like a bigger understanding of why we chose to come here, why we chose to have this physical experience, and to be able to surrender that program that we had as a child, because we're so much more than that. Like, to give that aspect of you who decided that they weren't allowed to be seen or heard, or they needed to be quiet, they needed to play small, that wasn't who you are. That wasn't, to give that new perspective, download from there. Yeah, that was awesome. I love how the sessions can just go into a way that not even I am prepared for sometimes, I think.
Yeah, that was
Which
beautiful.
is beautiful. And that's when we're working with the superconscious, when we're just working with knowing that we are so much bigger. And when we can remember that, all of us, it does make a difference. Well, thank you for joining me. I'm glad I got to do this week's session, because yesterday, I don't know what happened. Just everything sort of, technically, I was disconnected from everything, which is hard in this day and age when you don't have any internet and everything keeps dropping out, and it's like, what does that mean? But maybe today was the day I was meant to do it. Sometimes we just need to surrender and allow. Can't control something. Sometimes we just got to go with it.
Awesome.
Sending everyone much love. Have a beautiful week. And if you can make the Turn Your Page webinar on Friday my time, Thursday your time, but also I'll be doing another one on Friday your time. If I'll put a link in the Inner Circle page. It is about starting over and the steps involved with that. And so wherever you are on your journey, maybe there's something that we need to start. So sending much love. Okay. And I will see you next week. Bye.
Bye.